Body's top man.
Earliest Tov, Roy.
29th of June, Rabbi Levitt, Gemora. Rabbi Levitt, you are muted.
That happens.
That's the
Okay.
first thing the recording shows.
Okay, good. Okay, so, right, so yesterday we started this question, and so we're going to continue with it today, and hopefully we'll understand it. But as is Hashem,
Amen.
Hashem, enlighten our eyes to see the wonders of His Torah. So this can be found on 95b, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom of the page. Amar le Ravina l'Rav Ashi. So, Alan, would you like to start off the reading today?
Sure. Which page now we're doing, you said? 95B, B1, B what?
95 B, it should be the last page of 95B.
It's 95B3.
Okay,
I think it's 4. No?
What? 95B3, the right-hand column on the bottom. The Gemara digresses.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
the Gemara digresses to raise a difficulty with the ruling of Shmuel just cited. Omale Rabbi Noel, the Rav Ashi, Ravina said to Rav Ashi, Mi Omar Shemuel Baal Chov Lela Keach or Av Le Shavas, say a creditor, but the Shmuel indeed say that a creditor gives the buyer compensation for his improvements. For Amar Shmuel, why Shmuel said, Baal Chov Goveh Es HaShevach, the creditor collects the improvements that the buyer made to the land without compensating the buyer for them, question mark.
Okay, so right, the question is that we saw in all these three cases that Shmuel brought in the previous Gemora, we saw that even though the Baal Chov did not have to pay in land, he didn't have to give him back any of the animal, but he did have to pay him cash for the improvements that the purchaser, that the Yisomim had improved the property. So that's the Gemara's question over here. We have a statement in the name of Shmuel that a Baal Chov, a creditor, he is Goveh Es HaShevach. He collects the Shevach, meaning he's going to be able to take it away from the purchaser of that property, and he won't have to give him anything. This is what we're going to see in the first Rashi over here. Maybe let's read that first Rashi over again. We'll get confidence that we could understand this Gemara, because that's what it says over here. The second to the bottom line over here, Goveh Es HaShevach.
Goveh Es HaShevach. Goveh Es HaShevach. He pays for the improvements.
Gova, he collects.
Oh, he collects for the improvements.
He
Ve'eno, pardon? Ve'eno makazir lokeach klum. And he doesn't makazir. Makazir is to pay.
Yeah, he doesn't, Machzir literally means to return. He doesn't return
Nothing.
anything to the Lokeach, right, Klum. He takes the Shevach, meaning he takes the actual body of the article in question, and he does not compensate, he doesn't give back anything, doesn't return anything to the purchaser of that property. And so that conflicts with the statement that we have with Shmuel over here that said that in these cases that we had, the Baal Chov was giving back. He wasn't giving back the land, but he was giving back cash in exchange for the fact that he's taking the land. So he has to give cash to the Lokeach. Here, it seems that we're saying that Shmuel says he just collects the land, collects the article in question, and he doesn't have to give anything, doesn't have to return anything back to the buyer. And now, okay, so we don't really know what was the case it was that Shmuel said that din on. Rashi, that the Rashi doesn't tell us. But I think in the Gemora's answer now, we're going to understand what's the case that Shmuel said this about, and then we'll be able to distinguish that case from the cases where Shmuel said that the creditor does have to give back to the Lokeach cash. So let's read further in the Gemora. Right. Right. So now we're going to read from the Aleph Lamed. Aleph Lamed means Amar Le, and here is the response that the Rav Ashi is giving to Ravina's kasha about the seeming contradiction in the words of Shmuel. So, Amar Le, Roy, would you like to read Amar Le? Aleph Lamed.
Amar Le, Rav Ashi said to him, Lo kashya, it's not difficult. Kain kashavach, no, Kain bashabath, hamagia, lichtofir. Here, the ruling cited by Rav Nachman, where the creditor must compensate the buyer for the improvements. Shmuel is dealing with improvement that reaches the shoulders. The kan shevach she'ein magia lichofim. Whereas here, in the ruling you, Ravina, have just cited, where the creditor can collect the improvements without compensating the buyer, Shmuel is dealing with improvement that does not reach the shoulders.
Okay, so we got to know what's the deal with the shoulders over here? Why the basic answer is that there's two different cases over here that Shmuel is talking about. In one case, Shmuel says that the creditor collects from the buyer, he doesn't compensate him for the increased value of the property. and in the other case, he does. So it has to do with whether it has to do with something called where the appreciated value reaches the shoulders. So now what we need to know is, what does that mean that the appreciated value reaches the shoulders? Katef. Katef is a shoulder. Katafim is shoulders. Whose shoulders are we talking about over here?
Hamagia lekatfim reaches the shoulders. Kigon tevua she gadla kol tarcha notana lelokeach o dame. For example, produce that is big, that's grown. It's all grown. Tarcha, it's needed to take it, the lokeach, for the purchaser to take it, or its value.
Okay.
Lokeach is the purchaser, is that correct?
Lokeach is the purchaser, right? Okay. So what does this mean, what Rashi's saying over here? If we're talking about shevach, we're talking about appreciated value of the property that the lokeach, that it grew in the while the lokeach had already purchased the property. And so Rashi gives us an example of tevua, of grains. And grains have stalks, and the stalks grow up through the ground into the air. And if those stalks reach the shoulders, if that shevach, which is the appreciation value of the property represented by the stalks of wheat, if they Rashi says godla kol sarko is an expression. All that they need to grow. They grew all they need to grow, meaning they grew to full mature growth. And that's called that the appreciation reached the shoulders. So if the appreciated value of the property represented by these stalks of wheat grew to the shoulders, meaning that they grew to their full mature growth. So in that case, that's when Shmuel says, Nosno lelokeach. That's when Shmuel says that you give that the Baal Chov, who is recovering the property away from the lokeach, the property he's taking because he's entitled to the property. But the shevach of the property, it depends. If it reaches the shoulders, a full mature growth, then that has to be given to the lokeach. That shevach is a type of a shevach that has to be given to the lokeach. He's acquired it. So Rashi says, Nosno lelokeach. He's got the option. The creditor, the Baal Chov, he's got the option of what he wants to give. He can give either the stalks of wheat themselves if he wants, or if he wants to keep the stalks of wheat, he could give the lokeach dameha, their monetary value, their cash value. He has the option. The Baal Chov, the one who was the lender. So that's going to answer our question. in all the cases that we mentioned where Shmuel says that the creditor is giving cash to the Yisomim or to the purchaser of the property, he's talking about a case where the Shevach was Magia L'Katefim.
As a matter of form, the Shevach doesn't have to be something that grows. I mean, what if he puts a building there or something like that, or improves the fence or makes a dam or something like that? That would be Shevach too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure.
That
Right.
was, yeah, so in
Okay.
this case, this also applies. So if the building was completed and everything, that and if it wasn't complete or just started, or I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Very good. It would seem, yeah, it would seem that this principle would apply over there as well. Now Rashi just says over here, his first word is kagon. For example, this would be an example of which we could understand very well why it says that the appreciated value reaches the shoulders. If you got a 50-story office building, it's got to do more than reach the shoulders. I don't know, unless you'll say already with one floor he can make a lot. He could get 5 rents of $5,000 each a month or more.
The footnote here has a different take on reaching the shoulders.
Yeah.
It says that it's ready to be harvested and carried on the shoulders. In other words, the growth has completed and is ready to be cut down and carried away on one's shoulders, which would fit in a little bit better with, say, the example of having built something. If it's completed, then it can be under the category of reaching the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't mean its height.
Okay, so very good. So in other words,
It's some sort of completeness.
right. So what happens then if it's not Magia Tefim? So Shmuel says that the creditor can be goive. He can collect all of that shevach. If now on what basis is he going to collect all that shevach? Only if he needs to collect from that shevach in order to pay off his loan. If his loan is already paid off from the property itself, so then there wouldn't seem to be an issue over here. He can't get more than what he lends. That's what I would say. Although I don't see anybody saying this, but I think that's understood.
We have a footnote. It says produce that is not ready for harvest at all is considered to be part of the land, and Shmuel allows the creditor to collect it without compensating the buyer for its value.
Well, even if it's without regard to whether he needs to collect it in order to get his loan paid off.
That's what I don't understand. It would seem he can only collect the value that's equal to the loan. That's what I would think, but I'm not sure how that fits in.
Yeah. Um, right.
Oh, interesting. The footnote ends by saying that the buyer can go back to the seller for compensation for the improvement that was not compensated for by the Baal Chov. So the buyer's not actually losing out on his improvement. He just has to go to a different person.
Really, that's interesting. Why should he be able to get it from from his buyer, from his seller rather?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. The seller says, here's land, it's worth 100 zoos. Now the buyer says, okay, I'm going to go spend another 50 zoos and I'm going to build a fence. Now the Baal Chov comes and collects the whole thing. Oh, yeah, because it was the seller's obligation initially. If the seller hadn't sold it, the Baal Chov would come to the seller and collect. So the buyer says, you can't get out of your obligation. You should have paid off your debt. Now I'm the one that's losing. That's not right. You should be the one that's losing.
Yeah. Okay. So it was an indirect cause. True. He indirectly caused him the loss. It would seem though that this would be a grumma at most. But
right.
So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
Seems one step removed at least.
Okay.
Because
Okay. Who says that?
The seller could say to the buyer, "Who asked you to build a fence?"
Oh, also. Right. I mean, I will point out that it's definitely so that the buyer is going to be able to go back to the seller and recover from him the value the value that he paid for the land.
Oh yeah, of course.
That he'll be able to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That he'll be able to do. Okay. Okay. So that's the answer for Shmuel. And now we go to the next step. Amar Le. So he said right back to Ravina, countered the answer that Rav Ashi gave about reaching the shoulders. So Alan, you want to continue over here?
Yeah.
This is see where this is? 3 lines from the bottom.
It's 95B4, right-hand column, very top.
Rejects the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Ravina rejects this answer. Amalei, Ravina said to him, B'chor may seem b'chol yom, but there were instances daily when creditors would approach Shmuel. The K, Migad Bay, Shemuel would allow them to collect from purchases of their debtors' land. A Philu, Shabas, Amagye, Liva, Sechem, Sepayim, even from improvements that reach the shoulders without compensating the purchaser for that improvement. Nora answers on Malay. Rabbi said to Ravina, Lo Kashi is not difficult.
Okay, Lo Kasher. Roy, you want to continue? On
Okay,
we're on the next we're on Sadi Vav now.
right.
Hey,
Round of applause.
All right.
Sadi Hey Ahmed Base.
Ha, the Masik, Bay, Kashiur, Ara, the Shibacha. This ruling that the creditor collects the buyer's improvements without compensating him refers to where the creditor has a claim on him, his debtor, the one who sold the field to the buyer, for an amount equivalent to the value of the land and improvements. In such a case, the creditor collects the land and the improvements without compensating the buyer. The law Masik Bay Ayla Bashiur Araha. This ruling that the creditor compensates the buyer for his improvements refers to where the creditor does not have a claim on him, his debtor, for more than the land itself without improvements. In such a case, he still takes the improvements, but he must compensate the buyer for them.
Very good. So that's very good. So at the end of the day, what we're saying is that this creditor, even in the case where he takes the land as well as the appreciated value of the land, and he doesn't pay the lokech anything for the appreciation that took place over there, that's because he's owed that amount. He's owed that amount. He's taking that amount. But in the case where he's not owed that amount, he's only owed the amount that is represented by the land itself, and he's not owed the value of the appreciated value of the property. So then he's got to pay. He's got to pay for if he opts to take the everything without giving he has to pay him for it. He has to pay him for it. Okay.
so now it makes sense because the debt was included the 50. So when the buyer goes back to the seller and says, give me the additional 50, he says, it's because that's what you owed. You owed that additional 50. So give it to me.
He owed that amount. And in that case, he can go back and get it from him. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. He's not losing the look. Right. The purchaser is not losing out. He's not losing out on the fact that his land is taken away. He's not losing out on the fact that the appreciated value of the land is taken away and he wasn't paid for it. Now he's left with nothing. and he can go back to him and get full compensation, both for the land and for the sheva.
And the seller is not losing out because he got the money when he borrowed it.
The seller. Oh, well, actually, the seller probably only sold the land to him for 100. And it was the extra 50 that the Lokeach appreciated it. So now the Lokeach is taking 150 from him, though. It's more than the seller sold it to him for.
No, the Lokeach gives the land to the Baal Chov. Now the Lokeach comes to the seller and says, give me the 50. Seller says, well, you're right. I borrowed the extra 50, so I should pay it off. I should pay it back. I don't have to pay it back to the Baal Chov now because he got his value when he took all the land and the improvements. But I got to pay you, Mr. Buyer.
He's not giving him back only the what he sold it to him for. He's giving him back the loss that he caused to him. And he can't exempt himself from that because it was his default of that amount that caused the creditor to recover that full amount, including the appreciated value from the purchaser.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So how's that work as an example?
When you have when the borrower borrowed a loan, the loan was 150,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote in the star, he wrote in the star he owes 150. So now this, because on account of this star, that gives the lender the right to take away land that was already sold to a purchaser in order to pay off the unpaid debt. So he's owed 150. But the seller.
Sorry, he?
What?
You said, and he is owed 150. Who's the he?
The Baal Chov. The Baal Chov lent 150.
Right.
So he's owed 150. But the land itself was only worth 100, and only together with the appreciated value, it's worth 150.
Uh-huh.
So now we're saying that in that case, that the Baal Chov can now recover the land together with the appreciated value on it from the buyer. The buyer can now go and recover 150 from the seller, who was he was the seller of the land, and he was also the borrower from the lender.
Which looks like he hasn't got it to give him.
What?
He's got it because that's what he borrowed.
He borrowed.
He borrowed 150.
Yeah.
Now he's got to give the 150 to the purchaser.
Mm. Hang on, just a minute. I know it's quite simple, but I'm a bit confused. So I need 100 shekels. So I borrow 100 shekels from this person, right? Now he's my creditor, and I've got some land, and and I sell the land to this buyer, right?
Yeah,
That's the third person. But the land is only worth 50 shekels.
mhm.
So I can give that 50 shekels to the person I borrowed it from, the money from, the 100 shekels from. Right? Right?
Yeah,
Okay, so that means I now owe him 50 shekels. And the person who bought the land from me for 50 shekels blithely goes ahead and puts improvements on it, and it's now worth 100 shekels.
Yeah.
So the creditor has got somewhere to get the rest of the 50 from. So what does he do?
so since he's owed 100 and his borrower didn't pay him, so now
Right.
he
Oh, sorry.
event-
Yeah, sorry. So when I sold it for 50, I kept the 50 for myself.
the borrower sells the land to a purchaser,
Mm.
and now the land is owned by the purchaser, but there's a lien on the land.
Right.
There's a lien on the land in favor of the lender.
Right.
So now when the borrower doesn't pay, he defaults on his loan, that entitles the lender to go to the purchaser of this land
Mm-hmm.
and take his land away from him. But we're saying that not only is he able to take the land away from him, he's even able to take away the appreciated value of the land as well, which
equals the loan. Both
yeah,
equals the
right. The
loan.
whole loan is 150. So the land together with the appreciated value is 150. So he
Right.
could take that all away from
Right.
the purchaser.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're saying that the purchaser, to recover his loss, he can go to the seller and get compensated from the seller for his loss.
And the seller can do this to a certain point because he got the money from the buyer.
Why can the seller? What do you mean the seller can do this? He only got 50 from the buyer. He only got 50 from. He only got rather 100 from the buyer.
Right, but he can. But that's all he can give.
No, he's got to give the whole 150.
But he hasn't got 150.
Yeah, he does, because he borrowed 150 from the lender. He's actually got 250. He borrowed 150 from the lender, and then he sold the land for 100. Now he's got 250.
All right.
Now
Okay.
the borrower takes the land back, and the purchaser comes to him and says, "Give me 150.
Mm.
That's what I just lost."
Mm. Right. Okay.
He still has 100.
Mm. Okay. And have we addressed the situation where the original borrower no longer has that money and can't compensate the buyer?
Garnish his wages.
Beg your pardon?
Garnish his wages.
Garnish his wages. All right, if he can.
Goes to court and he says, "Give me my money." He says, "I don't have it." The court says, "Well, you're going to have to pay it one way or the other. We'll figure out a way.
All right.
You have other property, we'll sell that. If you have wages, we'll garnish the wages. If he has absolutely nothing, he's destitute, then then the purchaser loses out.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And by the way, the reason why we should point this out, that this Baal Chov, the lender who lent this money, he's only going to be able to take away the property from the purchaser if the loan agreement between the borrower and the lender was a written agreement and it was witnessed by witnesses. Why is that? Because we don't allow the creditor to take away the person's land that he bought unless the person is properly should have known that this land was encumbered. So how does he know that the land was encumbered? So the way that it works in the halacha, in the Gemora here is that the loan agreement has to be written and witnessed. If it's an oral agreement, in other words, if it was a loan that was just an oral agreement, I'm borrowing 100 shekel from you, and I'm going to pay you back after a month's time. It was just an oral agreement. It was not written down. It wasn't witnessed. So who is supposed to know about that agreement? So the person who buys land from this borrower who borrowed 100 shekel, how is he supposed to know that his property is on lien, that he's buying from this seller who took a loan? If it's not written down, it's not. So the halacha is that only in the event that the purchaser of the land should have known that the land has an encumbrance, will the creditor, the lender, be able to take his land away from? This is, our Gemora doesn't talk about it over here. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that halacha over here, but this is based upon a this halacha is made clear from a Gemora in all sorts of Gemoras all over the place. And one of the places is Bava Basra Kufnun Zion Kanaz 127.
Bala Basra 127 what?
B.
B.
Right. Ein habal chov goyve es hashevach elim kein kosav aloyve b'shtar shehu meshubad lo gam es hanechasim sheyikna la'achem mikan. Oh, well, this Gemara is talking specifically about the issue of the appreciated value. That the Baal Chov will not be able to recover the appreciated value of the property from the purchaser unless it was written in the shtar, meaning the loan agreements, and witnessed that Shuhu Meshubed Lo Gamasa Nechasim Sheyikne La'achem Mikan. That's also that the Gam Oz Enu Goy Ve'el Chatzi Shevach Bilvad. Okay, so there's a number of details over here. Okay, but without getting overly complicated, That's the general principle. And the rationale behind the principle is, of course, is that the Torah wants to be fair to all the parties. And in other words, the Torah wants that this lender has a way to get his money back in the case that the guy defaults on his loan. But at the same time, so therefore it provides for the possibility that he can recover that unpaid loan from a purchaser of the property, of the borrower. But at the same time, we wanted to protect the purchasers as well. So we said that the guy, the Baal Chov, the lender will not be able to collect from him and take away his property unless it's a written agreement, which has witnesses, which since witnesses talk, that's what they do when they go to the mikveh on Erev Shabbos. They talk and they say they were a witness, and because such and such a piece of land was sold by Reuven to Shimon in such and such a location, and then he tells his friend, and then people are aware of what's happened, what's happening with land, and this is a very important thing to know when you purchase land, that you have to know if there's any encumbrances on the land. And so if there was a shtar with witnesses, so that is considered sufficient to put the purchaser on notice. And so it's up to the purchaser to investigate and see if there are any outstanding loans, unpaid loans on the prop that their seller has taken from a lender, to make sure that he doesn't get burnt like this, because we have to protect everybody, and like that, there will be people that will be willing to loan money because they can trust that they will get paid back, and then there will be people that will be encouraged to buy property because they know that they will be protected from a creditor who wants to take their land away from them, because they have to do their efforts to find out whether there is any encumbrances on the land. Okay.
The shtar itself would be held by what? The creditor?
Oh, so yes, that's correct. He's the one that holds the shtar.
Mhm.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if the copy of the shtar would be held with the Sanhedrin, so that it could with the what do you call it? No, yeah, so that someone could go and look for it there, but they didn't do that in those days. They didn't have such records kept.
Well, people are the purchaser of the property is going to know, because he's going to ask around and he's going to find out that this seller of his has outstanding loans, because the witnesses to all of these loans that they signed their name on the loan, they talk.
Doesn't he also have to register it with the Beis Din?
The basic, that's what I meant, not the Sanhedrin, basic.
I think I remember learning that the creditor registers the loan document with the Beis Din.
Ah, so they do.
Whether that's going to be you're getting into complications over here. That will help him collect. That will help him authenticate his shtar, so that he can collect from the borrower. Will he be prevented from taking it away from the? Yeah. perhaps.
I know in American law, you have something similar. If you sell your house, part of the process is what they call a title search. You actually hire a company
Yeah,
to do the title search to certify or guarantee that there are no outstanding liens against the property.
right.
And if they mess up and there is a lien and they miss it, then they become liable.
All right, title insurance.
Yeah. So the buyer can sue the title company. If he buys the property and then 3 months later somebody comes and says, "Hey, you owe me money. Here's my document," then he can go and sue the title company.
Mhm.
It's
Okay,
12:38.
Okay, so much.
Yashikoya,
Rosh Tov.
Chodesh Tov u'Mevorach.
All right, Chodesh Tov.
Alan, I'll see you at 4.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.